guess who else we're talking to right before we talk to Esha and Professor Horn? I'll tell you who. Are you ready for this?
Who's that?
Ben Spielberg.
Wow.
No relation to Steven Spielberg, but someone we've been talking to a lot about various things, including Force the Vote. So without any further ado, let's bring on Ben Spielberg. He's going to tell us what just happened with the Force the Vote. Ben, are you there?
Hey, Katie, I'm here.
Hey, Ben. Also,
hey, Ben,
I
what's
want
going
to give a proper introduction. Ready? Which is that Ben Spielberg is a Wonk. I didn't add you to the lineup, so I don't have your bio. But why don't you introduce yourself, and then I'll hype you.
You're a Wonk, right? You're a Wonk.
You're a Wonk, which was you are a Wonk.
Sure, thanks.
I'm not Wonk, I'm Wonk elevating. Yep.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as an advocate for social justice policy across the board. I co-founded and blog on 34justice.com and also spent some time working in DC on policy issues at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. So do have some experience in the DC policy space, and then just generally like to advocate for social justice policy. Yes.
Also, I'm just going to say one thing. And Jack, do I have your permission to say one thing that's like a warning and a policy position of mine? A wonk. Can I make a wonky position about my chat?
Hey, listen, I'll tell you my answer very clearly by remaining silent.
Great. Okay, good. Just silence is complicity. So he's being
That's right.
I'm about
That's
to say,
right.
Ready? Okay. Everyone, I'm trying to call people in, and I'm saying this with love. If you can't watch Ben without commenting on his, I'm sorry, Ben, just cover your ears. But Ben is like, lets everything roll off his back. I don't know how he does it, but I love it. I'm going to hide the chat, but I need to say this because I feel like I'm somewhat responsible for, I'm trying to use my power for good. Okay. It's very stupid. Forget the, we don't have to call neolibs who disagree, people who disagree with us neolibs. Ben actually agrees with us. I am chat elevating. Stop telling me not to chat elevate. Okay. Everyone shut up. Here's the deal. Except for the people I like. Ben is very smart. And it's kind of embarrassing when people just say oh, this neolib, this guy again. If you want to never listen to policy stuff, then fine, go. I don't care. Ben is good. Even if he weren't good, I'd appreciate if you guys didn't sound like 5-year-olds who just discovered Karl Marx in the last 10 minutes and think you're really smart. I'm going to lose all my audience. I don't care. By saying neolib she'll sell out. No, save that for people who are that. I mean, I think it sounds cliched and corny anyway, but at least direct it to the right people. Okay. You're embarrassing me. You're embarrassing the show. Luckily, Ben doesn't care. And yeah, I'm simping now. I don't even know what simping now means, but I'm going to ignore the chat, and I'm going to listen to the very good people on the show. And I'm sorry, anyone who saw this, who this does not apply to, but you obnoxious people in the chat, you're like AIPAC. What do I mean by that? You do not represent most people, but you're loud. You're probably not funded, but you are loud, and you give some people the wrong impression of this, okay? And then I'm going to ignore the people telling me stuff because... yeah, I am high school marming. I am school marming again, and I school marm identify. Okay, now without any further ado, great. Ben, thank you for rejoining. Please give us a breaking news update about what just happened with this Michigas, because I don't even understand. I saw Corey, some people voted against Pelosi, then they voted for her. What's going on?
Well, so there was the speakership vote for Pelosi today, which we all knew was going to happen. And I don't think we should take it as a surprise that it panned out this way, because I think all indications were that it was likely going to. But Pelosi was reelected speaker. She got 216 votes, with all but 6 Democrats voting for her. And Kevin McCarthy, the Republican nominee, got 209 votes. The 6 Democrats that voted did not vote for Pelosi. None of them were the real progressive members of Congress. There were 2 kind of more moderates who voted for different Democrats. There were 3 who voted present, so said they were there, but just didn't take a position. And then there was 1 Democrat who did not vote. So Pelosi did get reelected to the speakership today. I think it is pretty disappointing, not just if you supported, again, specifically the floor vote as your one demand, but just in general, because Pelosi is really a big obstacle to any sort of progressive change, having her as Speaker in the House for another 2 years is going to be a challenge for progressives to have to deal with.
So do you understand why certain people voted against her and then voted for her? Was it that they voted against her or they didn't vote? I just want to make sure I have the details of that down.
Yeah, so I think you're referring to initially some people thought that Cori Bush and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Barbara Lee did not vote for her. And, I'm not entirely sure what happened during the vote, but they broke it into several segments where they'd call different representatives by their last name in the alphabet. And so when they initially called Cori Bush, Barbara Lee, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, there was no response. Now, they may just have not been in the chamber at that time. At the end of the different calls for votes, they came back and they said, okay, everybody who didn't get an opportunity to vote the first time, we're going to go back through you. And it was during that time that they did cast their votes for Pelosi. So they did not vote against at any point. They just didn't cast a vote during the initial time that their name was called. We don't know why at this point entirely. It might just be that they weren't there. And it's possible that they were doing something else at the time or were in discussions at the time, but we don't really know. Other than that, they did cast their lone vote in favor of Pelosi.
In theory, they could have been playing like a very engrossing game of Pentix, which is a Tetris style game. It's the only game I ever play, and I'm very bad at it. And at one point, we're going to have to play on my screen, and people can advise me because it's pathetic. But I mean, so they could have just been, maybe they were watching an episode of the Katie Halper show, and they just couldn't pull themselves away. We don't know, nor do we know what like concessions, if any, they got, right? I guess they're saying it was the pay-go thing. But I do want to just read one thing, which I guess I should read Cori Bush's statement, right? I'm reading from Dan Marin's tweet. Dan Marin is a Huffington Post reporter. I don't know if you've already heard this, Ben, so if you have, apologies. Right. In the statement that Cori Bush provided to HuffPost about her decision to vote for Pelosi, she cites new exceptions to PAYGO and reforms to motion to recommit process. Quote, the progressive movement is well positioned to make the transformational change we need. And then says, throughout my transition to Congress, I've been in constant contact with House leadership about the pressing needs of Missouri's 1st District. Through these conversations, our movement was able to secure a historic appointment to the House Judiciary Committee, where I will bring the energy of the Ferguson uprising into legislative work that will protect Black lives. After working hard and making history on behalf of the people of St. Louis with that appointment, I was proud to cast my first vote on their behalf today in support of Speaker Nancy Pelosi. As we begin the 117th Congress, we are living through the most perilous public health and economic crises of our lifetimes. It is imperative that, with millions of lives on the line, the House is in order to pass the life-saving COVID-19 relief that we need. As incoming deputy whip of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, I was also proud that we secured reforms to PAYGO, a longstanding roadblock to the passage of the critical progressive priorities. There is an important step. This is an important step, and we will continue fighting until PAYGO is eliminated altogether. Additionally, as a Progressive Caucus, we secured reforms to the motion to recommit, putting an end to its divisive use by the Republican Party to poison legislation. From securing key community assignments to laying the groundwork to pass our agenda, the progressive movement is well positioned to make the transformational change we need. Okay, Ben, what are your thoughts on that? Or can you break that down for us?
So, look, I'm really excited about Cori Bush being in Congress, and I do think that she is going to advocate for the things that she said that she's planning on advocating for. Like, I think she's going to be a real ally in Congress, and we want her there. The thing that I don't think is particularly compelling, and I think that gets back to why progressives should be not very happy with the outcome of the speakership vote, is this idea that they were able to secure the motion to recommit and the PAYGO exemptions as their concessions in exchange for this vote. Because throughout this whole force the vote debate, I really think the most important issue has not been the question of, is a floor vote the thing that they demand or not? The most important issue to me has been, how are they going to exercise power when Democratic leadership really wants something to make sure that progressives get a lot of what we want, because there are enough progressives in the House to block parts of the Democratic agenda in order to.
Looks
you guys,
like we
he just got
lost
the NSA, the CIA, all of them just They heard what Ben was saying, and they were too threatened by him speaking truth to power. Oh, he's back because they heard us calling them out, Jack. We called them out. Maybe calling some other people in, but when it comes to the national security intelligence community, which as Max Blumenthal says is neither intelligent nor a community, we call out. So, Ben, thank you, by the way, intelligence community, for rebroadcasting Ben. Ben, what were you saying?
So, I think there were three approaches that they could have taken. And these are three approaches that kind of social justice advocates really have to weigh every time there is an issue that Democratic leadership wants. One approach is they basically say, look, we're going to do what you want anyway. We're going to vote for Pelosi as speaker. We're going to tell you the things that we want, but at the end of the day, you can count on our support. That's really a recipe. You can understand it in some ways if the alternative is really bad, but it's a recipe for not getting anything. So that's an approach in this circumstance that I don't really think was defensible for them to take. The other two approaches that they can take, one is they can say, look, Pelosi is a huge obstacle to progressive progress, and she's been super dismissive of us. She's blocked our agenda at every turn. We're not going to vote for her regardless of what you do. We need somebody new as speaker. So if you're going to put Pelosi up as the Democratic nominee for speaker, you just will not get our votes. They could have done that, and I think that would have been okay. But the third approach that they could have taken, and I think was the one some people were hoping that they were taking during this debate, was we will consider voting for Pelosi if you give us one. And if they take that approach, we really need to look at, does Pelosi, that approach only works if Pelosi and the Democrats think that they might actually, at the end of the day, withhold their votes if they don't get enough. So the question here is, did they get, like, if you think that that's the approach that they were taking, did they get enough? And it's hard to evaluate without knowing everything that they advocated for. But I think this is the question that progressive organizations and individuals really need to take a hard look at, because when I look at the last few weeks, what I see is an Energy and Commerce Committee fight where AOC did not get the seat that she wanted, and somebody who voted against Pelosi in 2018 got that seat instead. I see a coronavirus relief bill that was a bad compromise bill that contained a lot of bad stuff that Democrats didn't have very much time to review before voting on it, that they were basically just handed as a take it or take nothing proposition. And then we see a rules package where progressives are pointing to wins they got, motion to recommit and PAYGO exemptions, but the exemptions aren't super broad. They wanted a full repeal of PAYGO. And motion to recommit is something that non-progressive Democrats probably wanted too. So, or at least many of them probably wanted to. So to me, this is not a big win for progressives, and we really should have seen more opposition to Pelosi and greater demands in this fight.
Yeah, so I don't know where we go from here. Maybe there's more organizing. Maybe there's abandoning electoral politics. That's a big question, but we're going to have to see. Ben, anything else you want to say? I mean, you can stay on if you want for a little bit to overlap with our amazing next guests, or you probably have to get back to, talking about this stuff with your wife, who's a doctor and a Medicare for All advocate. You probably have to talk with your sister and your mom, both of whom are nurses and Medicare for All advocates. Am I right?
Thank you for remembering that, Katie. Of course. Yeah, no, absolutely. The only thing I'll say, and then of course I'll cede to your other guests, but I don't think people should give up hope, and I don't think anybody should abandon electoral politics over this. What I would say is this was the first fight of the 117th Congress. We've got 2 years where there is a relatively slim Democratic majority and enough real progressive members of the House that they can exercise their power. What I would say we should all do is really think about, and again, working in concert with progressive organizations. Democratic Socialists of America is one great one that's doing a lot of really positive work, but we need to have conversations among those groups about how do we make sure that the progressive bloc in Congress does actually use its leverage in some of these upcoming fights, because this is not going to be the only one. There's going to be a ton of them, and we need to start winning them. And we just need to strategize to do it. So the only thing that I would say again is don't give up hope. Let's start strategizing now for how we're going to exercise our power.
Okay, got it. So keep hope alive. Keep organizing. And Ben, you're gonna be one of our regular Bens. There are a lot of Bens in this world, but no, you're gonna be one of our regular Wonk stringers.
Wow.
Like that?
Well, thank you. I'm honored.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And again, everyone follow Ben. Everyone read his stuff, follow his blog. Bunch of great people in the header and the banner. I believe you have Helen Keller up there.
Helen Keller is up there.
As a socialist.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, so thank you for reminding us of that. And okay, I'm going to bring in our next guest. Thank you again so much, and have a great night.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks, Jack. Have a good one.
Nice to
Bye,
meet you.
you
Yeah.
too.
See ya.
So wow, that was great. I love Ben.
Ben's
We got
great.
someone donated $5 to let me check it. It's actually I can see it in the YouTube. Someone very kindly donated $5 for Ben. So Ben, you can buy yourself a kombucha or whatever you guys do in the Bay Area.